Welcome back to Klepper's Corner. Today in history. April 7th is one of those dates where humanity seems determined to do absolutely everything at once. Invent global religions, rewrite legal systems, overthrow governments, invent television, and almost lose nuclear weapons in the ocean. It's like the universe accidentally hit shuffle on the timeline playlist, and we got a little bit of crucifixion, a dash of enlightenment measurement, and just enough mere apocalypse to keep things interesting. Today, we're walking through the moments where humanity either made dramatic progress or dramatically proved it still has absolutely no idea what it's doing. Segment 1, and the day empires thought they were in control. History loves irony, and nothing says irony like the Roman Empire executing a guy in an attempt to maintain political order, only to accidentally launch one of the largest religions in human history. The crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth shows Rome trying to stabilize a tense holiday weekend, basically treating Passover like modern governments treat major sporting events. Increase security, avoid riots, and hope nobody starts a movement that lasts 2,000 years. Meanwhile, in 451 AD, Attila the Hun showed up to Metz like history's least welcome Airbnb guest, burning the place down so aggressively it forced the Romans and Visigoths to cooperate, which is basically the geopolitical equivalent of cats and vacuum cleaners forming a peace treaty. The fascinating pattern here is that powerful empires always believe they're managing stability, when in reality, they're often just setting up the next massive historical pivot. Rome tried to silence dissent. Attila tried to intimidate Europe, and instead, both triggered events that reshaped Western civilization. Turns out, history doesn't like being micromanaged. Segment 2, and the dangerous confidence of people who think they fixed everything. In 529 AD, Emperor Justinian unveiled the Corpus Juris Civilis, a massive legal reform meant to simplify Roman law, eliminate contradictions, and finally make government make sense. Which is adorable, because no legal system in human history has ever stayed simple for longer than about 12 minutes. Justinian banned commentary on the code because he thought it was perfect, which is the same energy as someone posting a hot take online and immediately disabling replies. Then, in 1141, Empress Matilda got incredibly close to becoming England's first reigning queen, before discovering the fatal medieval leadership flaw of being too confident in public. She won battles but lost the crowd, proving elections have always been about vibes. And in 1348, Charles University was founded to strengthen Catholic orthodoxy, only to help spark religious rebellion a century later. The lesson here is simple. Whenever someone says, "This will finally solve everything," history immediately prepares a sequel. Segment 3, an exploration, rebellion, and the human talent for escalation. Ferdinand Magellan arrived in Cebu in 1521 and immediately began doing what European explorers did best, combining diplomacy, religion, and just enough arrogance to get himself killed 3 weeks later. It's a classic historical pattern where exploration quickly turns into domination, followed closely by unintended consequences. Meanwhile, in 1712, enslaved people in New York launched one of the earliest organized revolts in the American colonies, reminding us that oppression always contains the seeds of resistance. By 1724, Johann Sebastian Bach was premiering the St. John Passion, demonstrating that humans cope with suffering either through rebellion or incredibly complicated choral arrangements. And Dick Turpin's execution in 1739 shows how history sometimes turns criminals into folk heroes, simply because storytelling loves a dramatic outlaw. Humanity has always had a strange habit of turning messy reality into romantic legend, which explains half of modern internet discourse. Segment 4, and measuring the world while setting it on fire. In 1795, France adopted the metric system, finally deciding that measuring things based on the king's foot size was not ideal for science. The meter was designed to represent 1/10,000,000th of the distance from pole to equator, which sounds precise until you remember the scientists measuring it were arrested repeatedly during the French Revolution because locals thought their equipment looked suspicious. Meanwhile, John Walker sold the first friction matches in 1827, accidentally inventing the ability for humanity to start fires instantly, which feels like a bold upgrade for a species already known for impulsive decisions. By 1862, the Battle of Shiloh demonstrated that the American Civil War was not going to be resolved with polite disagreements and strongly worded letters. And in 1896, the modern Olympic Games began, proving that even after centuries of war, humanity still enjoys competitive running as a way to avoid conflict, which is frankly healthier than most diplomatic strategies. Segment 5, and technology, war, and the century that would not relax. The 20th century really leaned into dramatic pacing. In 1927, the first long-distance television broadcast proved humanity could now transmit images instantly, ensuring future generations would argue with strangers in real time instead of writing strongly worded letters weeks apart. By 1933, Americans celebrated the legalization of beer after Prohibition, demonstrating that if a law is unpopular enough, people will simply wait it out like a bad streaming subscription. Then, in 1945, the Japanese battleship Yamato was sunk by aircraft, proving that the biggest weapon is rarely the smartest investment, a lesson governments continue to ignore enthusiastically. The World Health Organization was founded in 1948 to promote global cooperation, which is historically admirable, considering the Cold War was already warming up like a microwave left on too long. Humanity simultaneously builds tools for cooperation and conflict, often on the same afternoon. Segment 6, and the modern era's talent for complicated problems. By the late 20th century, April 7th becomes a parade of events that feel suspiciously familiar today. In 1966, the United States lost a hydrogen bomb in the Mediterranean, which is exactly as concerning as it sounds, only to find it thanks to a fisherman who essentially told the Navy where to look. In 1969, the first technical document that became the Internet was written casually by a graduate student, meaning the digital age began with homework. In 1994, the assassination of Rwanda's prime minister accelerated one of the worst genocides in modern history, a devastating reminder that progress is never guaranteed. By 2001, NASA launched Mars Odyssey, continuing humanity's tradition of exploring other planets while still arguing about parking spaces on this one. And in 2003, coalition forces entered Baghdad, illustrating once again that regime change is easier to start than to finish. History shows that technological progress often outpaces political wisdom, which explains why we can stream video from space but still struggle to agree on lunch. In conclusion, April 7th reminds us that history is rarely a steady march forward. It's more like a chaotic relay race, where each generation hands off both incredible achievements and deeply complicated problems. Empires fall, religions spread, laws evolve, technologies transform society, and occasionally someone misplaces a nuclear weapon. The pattern isn't that humanity constantly improves, but that it constantly experiments. Some experiments give us global communication, international law, and space exploration. Others give us war, propaganda, and Baghdad Bob insisting everything is fine while tanks roll behind him. If history teaches us anything, it's that certainty is usually temporary. Confidence is often misplaced, and progress almost always arrives wrapped in unintended consequences. Which means somewhere, right now, someone is probably inventing the next world-changing idea, and absolutely no one has any idea how it's going to turn out.